Welcome back to the Wrestling News Network. My name is Eric, known on the internet as tubbyemu. Joining me again is internet personality, YouTube star, TonyPizzaGuy. You guys can follow him, youtube.com/We Capture the Frag. Over 80 million views, known worldwide. You can check him out on Up, Up, Down, Down, formerly featured on WWE's YouTube channel. Tony, thanks again for stopping by to talk Royal Rumble with us.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
The first thing I want to ask you right off of the bat is the one thing I think is your sticking point is, should there have been a more surprise entrance in this Royal Rumble?
I think so.
Are you upset at all over, because right now, looking upon social media, I'm seeing a lot of people upset that there was in fact no Royal Rumble. What would your counter be to that? No surprise entrance. Did they need a Rumble? Did they need a surprise person this year?
I think so. I think there was a clear lack of anything surprising in this. I think the only real surprise that we got out of it would probably be Ty Dillinger at number 10 from NXT. I was hoping for Samoa Joe, maybe a Finn Balor return, maybe someone else, Shinsuke Nakamura, maybe, you never know. But there was really no surprise here.
So you brought up a couple names right there that I do want to touch on really fast. What is surprising? Because I seriously like to know this. In an age when everybody accuses WWE of being predictable, Ty Dillinger's whole gimmick is being number 10. Is it a surprise, Tony, if Ty Dillinger is number 10? Because let's be honest here, if your big complaint is WWE always does the predictable, is him being at number 10 too predictable?
I can see where you say that. I think that I guess it wasn't really a surprise then, now that you think about it, because yes, he did debut, but I already thought that he was going to come out. So maybe it wasn't a surprise.
So based on what you're just telling me, I mean, and I'm not throwing any stones here. I'm just trying to understand this from my perspective for the viewers. No surprise entrance in the Rumble, and I don't blame you. If you look down the Rumble, there was no big name surprise. The one option they had for a big surprise, as we know, went to Roman Reigns, who lost earlier on in the night thanks to an interference for Braun Strowman. But there was nobody on this list that was a surprise for the most part. So I would credit you for that. But did it need it, is what I want to ask you. Because as we transition to that, is this year's Royal Rumble, I think, in my opinion, based on what the writers' room had brought to me, is the writing in this Rumble is absolutely phenomenal, but there's some sticking points. Is there anything, because I do want to bring up some writing, is there anything in the Rumble that you thought didn't make sense? Is there anything that when you look on paper right now, what is your tidbit? What's wrong? Is it just surprise entrance? Is that your only sticking point right now?
No,
because people are upset about the Rumble right now. They're saying WWE went the predictable route, that Orton, for those that don't know, in fact, 4 days before, the betting odds, in fact, went to Randy Orton's favor. Recently favored person to win was The Undertaker, and at a point, Roman Reigns was actually favored as well. So Randy Orton ended up being favored. Is that because, Tony, did plans leak? Did WWE go this route? Was it a swerve? Or did they already have this planned out?
I think they had it planned out from the get-go. I don't know how the betting sites got a hold of this information, but I do believe that was another lack of surprise, because I was hearing that rumblings of Randy Orton winning and that he won, and I wasn't shocked at all.
So you weren't shocked at all when Randy did in fact win. Again, because of these betting sites. So if you hadn't tuned in to say, let me just throw out some, for clarity's sake here, WrestlingInc.com, Dave Meltzer, Wrestling News Observer, these sources that have kind of put out that Randy Orton would win. Is the WWE creative team being lazy here, Tony, by going with Randy Orton as the victor? Or is somebody inside WWE trying to sabotage it and essentially give out the winner to take it down? Because would you have ever had Randy Orton as a favorite to win this?
Never in a million years I would have ever thought Randy Orton. The way that they set him up in recent led me to believe that he was going to do something with the Wyatts at Mania, but now him being in the title picture, and essentially it's John Cena, Randy Orton at Mania, at least for the time being. I would have never thought Randy Orton would have done it. As far as like leaks going in WWE, I think that this is a potential leak in the WWE. I think they need to get like a tighter shift in there, because the Randy Orton came out of left field. So something had to come out of the writers. Like somebody
essentially broke ranks. Somebody had to, because based on the build and all the hype, as I talked to our team, they could have saw, and I'm just going to list a couple of these people: Braun Strowman, Sami Zayn. As we look down this list a little bit, as Goldberg, possibly Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker. This was the first year, I think, Tony, would you agree, the first year where we possibly saw multiple people winning the Royal Rumble, that there wasn't one favorite? Did you have a favorite at all?
I was thinking Taker maybe a favorite, Braun Strowman, Sami Zayn, like you were saying. But again, there wasn't one guy who I was like, this is the guy for sure winning it. Never in my mind did I could never come up with that conclusion.
So for the most part, except for the fact that the betting odds switched to Randy Orton, had that not happened, you would have been surprised that Randy Orton won.
Yeah, I would 100%.
Now, the question I wanted to flip side of that, because we do play this open and equal. We're fair and balanced here at Wrestling News Network. I wanted to, if he does win now, he is champion, even though it's completely out of left field. It's a surprise. You did not expect it. But now on paper, we have the 17th encounter. Just like John Cena is a 16-time champion, I'm guessing maybe is this the? Can we get the stat counters to check if this is their 16th match for the title? Possibly. Maybe they're trying to do some semblance here. But what do you tell the fans that maybe right now they just don't want Randy Orton? Maybe even if it was a surprise, maybe we have some viewers that didn't know about the betting odds or care about betting odds, because even when you bet on WWE, you can't bet a lot because it is scripted. Mm-hmm. That if they hadn't saw that, maybe they're ecstatic that Randy won. But yes, it's Cena for the 16th time. So even if you are surprised, Tony, are you now upset that it's John Cena versus Randy Orton, at least on paper, until something happens, because we do have the Elimination Chamber for the 16th time?
Yeah,
is that
currently
enough to drive
on
you away
paper,
from the product?
On paper, I could see people being upset. As far as the WWE goes in the landscape, the way that they run WrestleMania is that this needs to be the biggest card the entire year. This needs to bring in not just me and you who sit here and talk about wrestling, not just the guys who complain on the internet, not just the ones that hashtag Royal Rumble, hashtag cancel WWE Network. No, they need to get the people that don't watch wrestling every year. And who are the two biggest names in WWE that have been around for a long time, can still go? John Cena and Randy Orton. So they're thinking of putting them together at WrestleMania. That'll sell tickets. That'll get people to tune in. And those are the fans that don't normally watch professional wrestling. They'll hear Randy Orton, John Cena. Hey, I remember them. Let's watch it.
So to that point, like if you don't watch WrestleMania, if you showed somebody clips, what are you then drawing for? You said it is his biggest name. Now, John Cena, I 100% get. He's recently appeared on Good Morning America. He was the host of American Grit on the Fox Network. He has kind of become a little bit of a household name, similar to The Rock or Dwayne Johnson. But Randy Orton, he's on SmackDown. He's essentially on the B Show. Was it smart to give a win to a guy like Randy Orton on the B Show? I mean, because that's what the narrative has been. I mean, essentially now we have a SmackDown winner. The very first Royal Rumble has, in fact, gone to SmackDown. It's gone to SD Live, the show that's pulling in less viewers. So being that big surprise then, if we look at this, based on this Royal Rumble, Randy only eliminated one person, and that one person was at the end, and that was Roman Reigns. Had he eliminated anybody else, would it have made any difference to you? Does it really matter?
I think so.
Would it have been better for you if he eliminated Bray Wyatt? Say if Roman Reigns, and we're going to throw out some hypotheticals here. Say we got the greatest mystery debut, because like you said, it wasn't predictable. Say Kenny Omega, for example, came in at number 30, and Randy took him out, or somebody took him out. Obviously, you're still going to have Randy Orton be the victor. Does Randy? What happened? I mean, there is no perfect answer. If you're always going to have Orton win, I think we're getting a little upset, and I've gone a little off track for that because.
But let me take a step back though, because I think Randy Orton eliminating Roman Reigns was a perfect for them, because who does the WWE audience hate? Roman Reigns. So having Randy Orton win, people are like, okay, at least it wasn't Roman Reigns. Where if you would have had Kenny Omega, people would have been like, oh, that sucks. You could have had Kenny Omega, but you picked crappy Randy Orton. But now that Randy Orton went against Roman Reigns, you can make the fans somewhat happy.
So it's somewhat happy. So you're essentially, you're giving them crap. But again, that crap would not have existed had you not leaked it, because from everything that we saw, and then especially in the writers' room, we didn't see Randy Orton winning.
No.
We definitely saw a storyline between Randy and Bray, we do want to bring up, and I want to get your thoughts on this because of this. Randy and Bray are in a faction, and this faction has been in WWE a long time. It's part of the Wyatt family. Randy's actually new into this. Randy was involved with Bray Wyatt a couple months ago, which the writers' room actually speculated when Bray Wyatt attacked Randy Orton backstage. He would face Kane. And now we pointed out why this made sense for the storylines. And now, as Randy Orton has infiltrated, essentially, the Wyatt family, and Luke Harper turned on him last night. So now Randy has came in, and Randy has split apart the Wyatt family. Why go through all of this, Tony, to just win the Rumble? Why does Randy have to be associated with Bray Wyatt? What do you tell the viewer that, okay, what have I been watching on SmackDown for the last couple months then? Why is Bray involved, Tony? Do you have any reason for that? Why is Bray involved?
I think there's a number of reasons why Bray's involved. I think it's going to ultimately lead to Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton for a SmackDown title feud. I think that's the way that they're going with this. I think it would make perfect sense if you wanted to pull the trigger, because Bray Wyatt's always been a guy who's been semi-main to main, but he's never really been in that main picture. And putting him now with a guy like Randy Orton would be perfect, I think.
So, not in the main picture sense, and this is where I want to tie back in John Cena really fast. One of the best in the last couple of years, because we would agree that Styles Cena was a psychological match, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so Cena is known to put on psychological matches that are really good. The one that comes into mind as we're heading into WrestleMania, because this is very important to keep in mind, Tony, my favorite psychological match at WrestleMania in the past 3 years was, again, John Cena and the guy that you're mentioning now, Bray Wyatt. They put on a phenomenal psychological match. And Bray Wyatt seems like he's never been given an opportunity. Is it possible here that giving Randy the victory and having Luke descend, is this to make Bray Wyatt finally, is Randy trying to get something out of Bray that he may not have had before? Is he a Trojan horse? Is he coming in to try to pull something out of Bray? Or is he just realizing Bray's his biggest threat on SmackDown? Keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer, Tony.
I think that's what it is. It's like if you can't beat him, join him, as he said. And it's the kind of thing where you can keep him close, because we know that Bray Wyatt will defend the family. And if he's a part of that family, he's going to have Bray Wyatt on his side. And what better guy to have on your side than a Bray Wyatt who's willing to do anything? He doesn't care if he wins or loses. He will do whatever it takes. And Randy's trying to keep his enemies close so that he doesn't get turned on, which I think ultimately could happen, but at this point we don't know.
We don't know, and especially we'll find out going into the next pay-per-view. So other points for the Rumble, as you did bring up Randy Orton. Luke Harper did, in fact, turn. Other key points to note. We started off the Royal Rumble with Big Cass. And Chris Jericho was number 2. This is not the first time that Chris Jericho was number 2. He was also in the Royal Rumble last year with AJ Styles at number 2. He would go on this year to beat his own record at 1 hour, Tony. So out of the people that lasted the longest, did you see one of the people? Because the 3 people that lasted the longest in the Royal Rumble were Chris Jericho, Sami Zayn, and The Miz. So those 3 people lasted the longest in the Rumble. Is that who you expected to last the longest in the Royal Rumble?
I think so. I think that was just like the perfect 3 to have, because they are those workhorse type people that can go that distance. With The Miz, though, I feel like there's sort of like an injustice for him, though. I think he should have been on earlier. And I think that there's just like a whole, like looking at the numbers right now, I think there's like a whole injustice with SmackDown here. I mean, we can get into the numbers, but just looking at it, we had 11 from SmackDown and 17 from Raw. Like, how does that fit in? I mean, I don't know. We can go into the conspiracy theory here, but
my people are. Hold on one second, Tony. So the numbers are skewed in the favor, and you're correct about that. Based on the numbers that we do have, Raw did in fact have more people. But Tony, you may have missed this if you were just watching the Rumble, and you may have gotten caught up in the fact that your favorite superstar may have won or lost. In fact, the guys that came out the strongest were in fact SmackDown superstars. The people that did end up lasting: Dean Ambrose, Baron Corbin. You had the winner, Randy Orton, SmackDown. So it seems like SmackDown did come out, at least on paper, more victorious, because SmackDown, I don't know how you can say, Tony, that they got slighted when Randy Orton is on SmackDown and they took out Raw's top guy, Roman Reigns, Tony. So did they get the short end of the stick, or are we just focused on Raw's a bigger show, Tony? They have 3 hours. Shouldn't they have a bigger presence in the Royal Rumble? Are you just making something out of nothing here?
No, I
because
think
one show is 3 hours, one show is 2 hours.
Look at the SmackDown roster here, though, because we have who has the eliminations here? There's 3 people that had eliminations, and it was only one elimination. It was Baron Corbin, it was Randy Orton, and it was Luke Harper. The rest of the SmackDown team did nothing. As long as The Miz was in there, he didn't do anything. As long as, the rest of the people, Dean Ambrose, he didn't do anything. He didn't eliminate anybody.
Okay, so they didn't eliminate anybody, Tony. But are you telling me that a superstar... What you're telling me is Miz is a workhorse, and he essentially was buried in this match because he did not get an elimination. But, Tony, he was 32 minutes plus in the Royal Rumble. He was in there 30 minutes. You're obviously not going to leave a guy in there for 30 minutes if you don't value him, at least. Are you saying because he did not get an elimination that Miz was just wasted?
I think Miz should have been in earlier, lasted longer, and had at least one elimination. There's no excuse for not having elimination. I understand Goldberg had to do business. I understand Brock had to do business. I understand they had to make Taker look good. They had to make Braun look good, but there was still room. There's still room to give an elimination to one of these guys, especially The Miz. The Miz has worked his ass off on SmackDown. He's become a guy that I hated to a guy that I love to see, and I think from what he was when he was champion at WrestleMania fighting John Cena back in the day, I think they could even reintroduce that program and have The Miz and John Cena do it again. Because I think The Miz is that good
You're
now.
still holding on to him, but look at what The Miz has done in the past couple of months. He's had a rivalry with Daniel Bryan, a war of words, so to speak, on screen. They had the whole contract thing. He would go on to face Dolph Ziggler many times, Tony. And in fact, what you said was he should have came in earlier and lasted longer. He got eliminated 24th. Who came in at 24th, Tony? Are you able to tell me that? I'll tell you because I got the piece of paper in front of me. It was Dolph Ziggler. So it seems like as you're focused on the numbers right now, because whether or not he eliminated somebody, to me, he got eliminated 24th when Dolph came out. He was the 24th person eliminated. Is that some significance in there? Should I read in? Are we going to see more of that program? Tony, are you just too caught up in the numbers? I have a serious asking question here because you keep bringing up eliminations. Let's look at the eliminations last night. Raw. Chris Jericho eliminated 2 people. Mark Henry eliminated 1 person. Braun Strowman was 7. Baron Corbin was 1. Sheamus was 2. Cesaro was 2. Randy Orton 1. Brock 3. Luke 1. Goldberg 3. Undertaker 4. So to your point, Tony, yes, nobody on SmackDown really got the eliminations. SmackDown won, though. The people on Raw that got the most eliminations were Undertaker and Braun Strowman. Tony, who took out Braun Strowman, though?
I don't know. You'll probably tell me.
Baron Corbin. So you have SmackDown's answer, to Braun Strowman, the guy that was an absolute beast that eliminated your fan favorites, because we agreed that Ty Dillinger coming in at number 10 was smart business. In the ring at the same time, you had Kalisto, Mojo Rawley, Jack Gallagher. Braun would go on to take out Big Cass, Kalisto, Mojo Rawley, Mark Henry, Big Show, Ty Dillinger, and James Ellsworth. He was a wrecking ball, Tony. But who took out that wrecking ball? SmackDown's wrecking ball. So they may have had fewer eliminations, but I think it was more impactful. I think the number of eliminations here doesn't matter. I think it's who you eliminated. Because who then eliminated the guy that took out Braun? Tony, are you able to tell me that? I'll go ahead and tell you because I've got the facts in front of me.
The Undertaker.
And the facts, The Undertaker. The Undertaker took out Baron Corbin. So you have SmackDown's version of Braun taking out Braun, and the guy that was able to take out Baron Corbin was The Undertaker. So, Tony, I don't see the logic in the numbers. I think you're looking too much into the numbers. Storyline-wise, what was the biggest storyline you took away from the Rumble? Maybe we'll connect it this way. What's a storyline that you thought was underused in the Rumble? Do you have anybody that you didn't like? The Miz, right? That's your own words. The Miz should have lasted longer. Mm-hmm. Based on who came out after the Miz, you had Sheamus, Big E, Rusev, Cesaro. You had a string of 5 people from Raw. So Miz was in the ring with all of Raw people, some SmackDown people. That should go to show that he's on SmackDown, but he's putting up a fight, Tony. I'm still confused here what you are upset about if Randy Orton was a surprise to you. If you're happy with the outcome of Ty Dillinger, what is your complaint for the Rumble then, Tony?
I just thought the SmackDown was a little underutilized. I think there should have been more eliminations on the SmackDown side. Again, It's just the way that they're playing SmackDown. And it's not the fact that they're making SmackDown look good. They're constantly keeping SmackDown as the underdog, and that's what they're doing. They want SmackDown to be that B show, so if it doesn't do as good as Raw in the ratings, well, it's just a little bit less than Raw, and that's how they're always going to keep it.
If they wanted that, why would they give the victory to Randy Orton? The first ever combined champion, the first Universal champion. He was the guy that won the titles that combined it against John Cena.
Because Randy Orton is a
SmackDown
name.
is the B show, but they gave. Wouldn't they have been better off than giving the B show, giving the victory to a guy in the A show? Wouldn't it have been better to give it to a guy like Braun? Wouldn't it have been better to give it to a guy like Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, Roman Reigns?
I think you're missing the point here. I understand that
Feel free to go ahead and follow up on
Randy Orton is bigger than a brand in wrestling. He is one of the last big names that have been around for a while. I mean, you have Jericho, but he didn't win it. We had Big Show. There was no way he was going to win it. Mark Henry, no way he was going to win it. So, I mean, Randy Orton was one of those logical guys, and he's still a name that I would put up there with a Brock Lesnar, that I would put up there with a Goldberg, as far as a name that could still draw people into there. So, again, Randy Orton transcends that brand. I'm talking about the rest of the roster that didn't win it, the rest that didn't perform. Yeah, sure, you had Baron Corbin get eliminated by The Undertaker, which was cool, and now that I think about it, it's actually their version of Braun Strowman, which is nice. But, again, like, Dolph Ziggler didn't really do anything. He was just there. So
I would agree with that. He was there in 4 minutes and 21 seconds. He was taken out by Brock Lesnar. Yeah, that would make sense.
I just think that like the biggest story out of this probably was the SmackDown story with Luke Harper.
So the one thing that stuck out to you the most would be Luke Harper. I have to admit, it was a great spot. They did a great job of doing that. Tony, the question I want to pivot to you then is because the numbers are what you're saying are the big issue. Does that mean then, as you look down this, because it seemed like they went Raw, favorites, everybody was Raw. I think the grouping, to your point, of SmackDown superstars was a lot different because the way they're grouped in here is all the guys that came in on the Raw side were taken out by Braun Strowman. The guys were taken out on Raw and SmackDown. But when it came to Raw, the Raw guys, they were always eliminated by a Raw guy.
Yeah.
They were never eliminated by a SmackDown guy. That's what I'm getting at. Is that more to your point too?
Yes.
Like should SmackDown superstars in a true brand split that if they're truly feuding, because all the eliminations that we see in the middle of the card, Sheamus was taken out by Jericho, Big E by Sheamus and Cesaro, Rusev by Goldberg, Cesaro by Jericho, Xavier Woods by Sheamus.
The point I'm getting at here is that not enough of the undercard on SmackDown and Raw, I guess I can go with both of them, not enough of the undercard was focused on here. You had a guy like Mojo Rawley, right? I don't really like Mojo Rawley, to be honest, but he has a great story here with Zack Ryder getting injured and him winning that Battle Royal on SmackDown last week, where you had to give some sort of showing that he can look like maybe this guy could be a threat on SmackDown. But again, he didn't really do anything. He got eliminated by Braun Strowman.
Because of Braun Strowman, though, is what you just said. It led into it. If you're being held down by the underdog, Tony, and I want to connect the dots here because I think you may have been onto something here, is Braun Strowman decimated Mojo Rawley. Mojo was in for 6 minutes. He worked his ass off on the show of opportunity. That was your words, not mine. Earns his way in, and our writers' room have kind of speculated that Braun is kind of working with Triple H in some way, shape, or form. Takes him out. He took out Kalisto. All the guys that are working for the opportunities, Big Cass, Enzo, they're over. They're getting taken out. Enzo, again, over. Taken out by Brock Lesnar. It seems like they're using the people exactly like you said, Tony. I think you've nailed it on the head here, is the guys that are the favorites are being overlooked. The mid-card is being overlooked. From what I'm seeing, the mid-card was taking advantage to further the storylines. But, Tony, are you able to decipher that then the big matches going forward? Can we at least agree, and I want to get your predictions on some of these, where do we go from here then? If SmackDown and Raw are being held down on the undercard, where do we go? Where does a guy like, let me throw out an example here. Where does Taker go? You had brought up, I brought up how he eliminated Baron Corbin. Where does Taker go then? Because you would thought Taker could possibly win the Rumble. So where do you see him going from here?
There's two routes here. I think the most obvious route is Taker and Roman at Mania, but I do think because of what happened with Baron, there could be a possible Taker and Baron match.
So it seems like, I mean, at least from a writing perspective this year, we have different matches that are possible, right? Like in this Royal Rumble, Braun was a beast, and Braun eliminated 7 people, but would ultimately get taken out, as we've said, by Baron Corbin, who was SmackDown's answer. But in the end, Goldberg again. Goldberg took out Brock Lesnar in less than 15 seconds. Tony, is there any draw do you have any draw for a Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar 3? I mean, this is the second time now. At Survivor Series, it was less than 18. Here in the Rumble, he got taken out. Do we see Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar 3?
I think
I think
definitely
2. If you don't count the Rumble, it's technically number 2.
I think definitely it is, because Survivor Series was just a little taste, and now they can have the full course at WrestleMania. I feel like this is a match that everybody was talking about at Survivor Series. They got their little. It was good enough for what it was, and now I think this could be a nice way to kind of put a cap on it, end it, and have Brock Goldberg finish it off at Mania again. As I was talking about before, it's getting those casual fans to come in and watch, and that's a match that would get the casual fans to come in and watch.
So, see, that's where I'm confused, because then if the whole point of this Rumble, Tony, was to bring in the casual fan, you had your workhorses come in, because I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter, on social media, which you guys can follow us at TonyPizzaGuy, at tubbyemu, tag us in any post that you have about this, is that the undercard was buried. In this Rumble, especially because all the big guys got the name. But, Tony, it seems like going forward then at WrestleMania, the eyes are then going to be on the mid-card. Because can they go another short match? Would you really want to see another short match? But if they do a short match, does that open up a spot on the card for somebody in the mid-card exactly like what you're talking about now?
Well, here's what they're doing. They are making the marquee names, the Brock Lesnar's, the Goldbergs, the Roman Reigns, the Takers. Those are going to be at the higher on the card. What you're going to want to watch for is the mid-card guys, because they're going to put on the real performance. The big guys are to draw the casual fans in, and the undercard is to get people to stay.
That would make sense. Okay. So out of that then, we have, you have speculated Goldberg versus Brock, Roman versus Taker, Orton out of left field completely. Where do you see Orton going from here after tonight?
A lot of people have been saying Orton Cena. I honestly think it's going to turn, like I said, Orton, Cena, and AJ triple threat match. The reason this happened is because AJ doesn't get a fair one-on-one rematch against John Cena. So then AJ gets put in the chamber. That's part of it. Then AJ ends up getting a rematch. But no, it's not a fair one. Again, it's AJ, Orton, and Cena. That's the way I would like to see it.
Which would build on from what we've talked about, how SmackDown being kept down. And it's an opportunity, though, Tony, right? That's it. You're on SmackDown. It's an opportunity. He is giving you a match. Go into the chamber, kid. This is SmackDown. So it seems like they're setting up a pattern where the SmackDown is for opportunities. But the question is, who's the opportunity for? If AJ was the guy that carried your show since the brand split, and now you're just giving the keys to John Cena, is the opportunity being controlled, Tony? Are we headed to a point where will we see a revolution? Will we see the superstars revolting? Will we see a resistance? Will we see people stand up and fight for the role if this keeps happening?
I think
Seth was kept down.
I think there's a clear-cut divide in the WWE right now. I think there's those guys, like we said, the workhorses who have been there. They're the ones putting in the hours every week. You got like a Kalisto who goes out there, wrestles, does awesome stuff. But then you have the old guys, or the guys that have been around longer, that come in and they take the main event spots. And I think there's going to be a divide here between, let's say, the Authority or the upper management that Vince is, and then like a Triple H who's got I think there is just a clear divide here between because Triple H is he's fond of the younger guys, so that you want to see he wants to see those guys. But then I think there's a back and forth between Vince also wanting to see the money people like Goldberg and Brock be up there. So I think there is some sort of rebellion gonna be happening.
How do you balance that then? What does WWE do here? Because like you said, you need to draw. Plain and simple. Goldberg, I think, is a draw. Brock Lesnar is a draw. Taker may have lost a little bit. I got to ask your opinion on this really quick, because they're telling me here that they're finding some social media posts getting upset that the fact that Goldberg has now beat Brock Lesnar twice, technically once in less than 18 seconds, and then eliminated in the Royal Rumble, is that weakening the streak, Tony? Because there's chatter everywhere right now that because of the fact that Brock is being booked so weakly by Goldberg, that this that sounds ludicrous to me. That sounds. The streak is only at WrestleMania. Undertaker would lose 3 pay-per-views. I think he did, in fact, lose 3 pay-per-views in a row and then 1 WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. So are people putting too much stock in the fact that the streak is over? Can Brock lose now to Goldberg, or does that just mean how awesome Goldberg is?
So the whole point of him beating the streak was so that he has that over him. Then whoever wants to come in and beat the next one would, like, whoever comes in after Brock's reign or whatever, then he could be the next guy. I mean, they tried it with Roman, but whatever. Now they have Goldberg up there. As far as like the streak and all that, I don't think it really matters at this point. Like, that's an afterthought. To me, I think just people are overreacting if they're complaining about the streak and Brock and Goldberg.
Diminishing the legacy. I mean, once you start to think about it, pretty much anything is possible. You brought up that triple threat, and I'm glad you did, between Cena, Orton, and AJ, because if that match actually happens, it would kind of be a la Daniel Bryan. I had speculated that maybe Sami Zayn worked his way into a best friends feud on Raw, which I'd be glad to talk to you, bring you back on to talk about that, because it seems like you have clear thoughts on the Authority being held down, or the SmackDown being held down in a way. Then I'd have to ask your opinion on why Kevin Owens is being held in such high regard and why people like Braun are protecting him. But that'll be for a later day and a later show. But if that Cena match, let's say, the resounding message that we're going to finish on is, if you are a fan of WWE and you were loving what AJ was doing, Cena just ripped your hopes and dreams out, Tony. Tony, he came back in after being The Rock. He is now what you despise. Is he a transitional champion? Is there any way in your mind that you see Cena instantly dropping the title? Maybe in the Elimination Chamber, Tony, The Undertaker is there. And if you remember the Elimination Chamber 2010, it was Sheamus as the champion, Triple H, and The Undertaker. It was Triple H who eliminated Sheamus, and John Cena made Triple H tap. Could we see Cena be pulled away and still get Undertaker versus John Cena, the dream match that Vince McMahon wants, but not for the title? Is there any shot? Because John Cena can get upset at The Undertaker for taking away his 16th reign. Any possibility?
That could definitely happen.
The dream match that the fans always wanted.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. And if Taker's on the outs and wants to retire soon, that is a good route to go. I think that if they do hot potato the belt, which I don't really like them doing that, where they're going to give it to one guy then just to give it to another guy, I think they should have just kept it on AJ Styles. But I guess if they want to break the record of Ric Flair, they can give the hot potato title and then have Cena win it back eventually again, so he can be the record holder.
Not just breaking the title, because I think too many people are caught up on this record here, Tony. You had said earlier on in the show, and I'm going to go back to it, because once you say it, you said story was the most important thing. So if story's the most important thing, AJ was lost this whole time. Cena was in Hollywood, but Cena was always focused. Cena comes back, he gets under AJ's skin, and then he wins. Now, is there a possibility that as the 16-time champion, which the writer's room has said, does he go back to Hollywood now? The champ that runs the camp, AJ Styles, shows up on SmackDown the very first night, but the champ isn't there. The champ is on Good Morning America. The champ is on all these TV shows. Would that, Tony, give John Cena a reason to lose? It doesn't make sense to hot potato the belt, you're right. Why give it to Cena if Styles is just going to get it back or fight for it? But what if you use that story? What if he came back, Styles wasn't prepared, and neither was Cena? Cena went back to Hollywood. You double Hollywood it, where the guy that was in Hollywood comes back, but then he again loses it because of Hollywood, and John Cena now has an inner choice. Does he want Hollywood, or does he want to be in the WWE, Tony?
I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that would make perfect sense. And that would be the only way that I would be happy with the hot potatoing of the belt. If they did that where John Cena was too focused on Hollywood, took that title, was all excited about the talk shows, the late night, whatever, and then he loses focus of the matches that he has ahead of him, and then he's got to choose, do I stay in Hollywood? Do I go back to WWE? I want to beat Ric Flair's record, so I'm going to focus on wrestling.
There you have it. That came, Tony, from looking past the numbers. I hate to
close the book on that.
We closed the book on it. That's what happened. The Royal Rumble, all that happened. So I'm excited, guys. The Royal Rumble is going to be coming up. Is in the books, excuse me. WrestleMania is coming up. So I'd love to know your guys' opinions. You guys can feel free to reach out to me at tubbyemu on Twitter alongside at TonyPizzaGuy. Tony, any final thoughts you had on the Rumble? Anything that I will say one final thing, one final note that I do want to bring up here, as I think it's kind of a big sticking point. Luke Harper turning on Bray Wyatt, which we touched on. Maybe, just maybe, we finally get a serious Luke Harper who goes on to be a big deal. Maybe we finally get that Luke Harper that everybody knows exists. Was that his shining moment? Breaking out of Bray Wyatt's shell? Will we finally see the Luke Harper we always had? And that just happened from the Rumble. We have Braun looking like a beast. We have Sami as the underdog. You got Ty Dillinger. You got Bray Wyatt teasing some tension. You had Roman Reigns taking the role of 30 because whoever would have been at number 30 would have taken the heat. I'm glad it was Roman Reigns. You had your fan favorites. You had Goldberg giving you a taste of season 2. Or season 3, excuse me, for Supercard. I was joking. You have Randy Orton winning, who is the kind of the odds-on favorite, but it's still a huge surprise. It seems like, Tony, this was the perfect Royal Rumble, at least on paper, for writing.
I think the one takeaway is that Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family breeds success. Whatever happens in the Wyatt family makes success. You see Braun Strowman, you see Luke Harper coming out great, you see Randy Orton coming out great, and, I mean, it's just...
But, Tony, they lost all the time, though. Bray Wyatt never won. Was he a savior to everybody else? Did he make everybody else a success?
He sacrificed himself for the greater good.
And now is Randy trying to bring that out of him and realize he doesn't need to do that, and Randy Orton is the victor, will finally make Bray Wyatt into the superstar Triple H always knew he would, but Vince McMahon wouldn't let happen. We're going to leave it there. Tony, thank you so much for joining me. You guys can check him out, youtube.com/WeCaptureTheFrag, TonyPizzaGuy.com. Tony, again, thank you so much for stopping by for the Royal Rumble.
Thanks for having me, man.